Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Light for Grants interview series presented by the Community Sector Council of Nova Scotia with support from the Community Health Boards of Nova Scotia. This series is about helping community-based organizations across Nova Scotia prepare better grant submissions by giving them an opportunity to hear from the grantors themselves. Before we begin, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kmaq, the traditional or ancestral unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. My name is Joel Stoddard, and with me today is Karen Gilmore. Karen is the Community Sector and Investment Specialist with United Way Halifax. Welcome, Karen.
Thanks, Joel, and I'm really delighted that you've invited United Way to be a part of this Community Sector Council project. It's such a timely project today. Excellent. And I would like to acknowledge as well, Joel, that I am also situated in Mi'kmaq, the unceded ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and I'm located here in Shubuktut, commonly known as Halifax, and am personally and professionally committed to reconciliation.
Excellent. Thank you, and welcome again. So I would like to get right into things here. So probably best first to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and the United Way Halifax. So for some of the folks that don't know a lot about what you do, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Joel, for this opportunity, because we often say that United Way is well known, but not known well. So this is a good chance to share that. I've been in this sector working in this sector for over 15 years, and I bring a variety of experiences from program delivery to fundraising to being an executive director, sitting on boards, and all of this I bring to the work that I do here with United Way. And I've been connected to United Way in one way or another for probably 10 of those years. United Way is a local community impact organization. Our main vision for Halifax is to be Halifax united by compassion, rich in opportunity, and free of poverty. And this guides our work, Joel. It's a bold vision, but everything you do, and you'll probably hear the word poverty many times, but our work is about alleviating poverty and improving lives for the most marginalized in our community. We're guided by our values. Our values are respect, compassion, trust, adaptability. And I must say, adaptability is something that, wow, haven't we all had to be so adaptable and pivot?
Absolutely.
Pivot is a key word during this pandemic.
Absolutely. So how far back does United Way Halifax go? I mean, I know you said you've been there a while, but surely United Way goes back a long way.
We go back almost 100 years here in Halifax.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
So we've been doing this for a while.
Wow, that's impressive. And I think you also have, I could be wrong, but I was trying to do some of my research before we chatted, and there are a few other United Ways in Nova Scotia as well. I believe there's one in maybe Lunenburg and Colchester, or is that it?
There are 6 United Ways in Nova Scotia, and we are a local impact organization, Joel. So what that means is that we invest in our local communities. So if you're living in Sydney, if you're a nonprofit and working in Sydney, and you're impacting lives of people living in poverty in Sydney, my apologies, you're going to apply to the United Way of Sydney. So you apply to your local United Way in your area, and there are 6 of those, and we're national as well. We're across the country.
Wow. How many are there nationally? Do you know right offhand?
I can't answer that off the top of my head.
We'll say a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of us.
Absolutely, and certainly an enormous impact. Can you tell us a little bit about I know that United Way spans, we were just talking before we started recording, and you have such a broad scope of funding and that sort of thing, but I wonder if you can tell viewers and listeners a little bit about some of the more prevalent funding opportunities or granting opportunities. I know we use those words somewhat interchangeably, but can you tell us a little bit about some of the funds and opportunities that might exist for community groups out there right now?
Absolutely. First, I'll start by telling you what our community areas of focus are. And again, you're going to hear this word many times. Our community areas of focus are poverty, housing and homelessness, and social inclusion. So those are really important for anyone looking to apply for United Way funding. One of the most common streams of funding that we have and that people know about is our multi-year funding. So we, through donations to our United Way's Community Fund, we fund over 30 organizations to deliver programming to alleviate poverty.
Hmm.
That multi-year funding usually happens in September,
Hmm.
where we would typically start with an expression of interest
Hmm.
for people who might be interested in the funds. Again, we we like to think of ourselves as a kinder, gentler funder. It's
Hmm.
not, here's the application, fill it out, and good luck. We welcome people to fill out that expression of interest when it's
Hmm.
available,
Hmm.
and so it's a shorter, quickly we can tell whether that application aligns with those areas of focus. So again, poverty, homelessness, and housing, social inclusion.
Have those always been the three sort of pillars, or do they change sort of as society changes and that sort of thing?
We respond to community need.
Hmm.
So back in 2015, we did a poverty solutions report. We partnered with HRM,
Hmm.
the municipality, and it was a thorough uh, consultation of our
Hmm.
community to understand what poverty looked like in our community and what the community said needed to
Hmm.
be done to alleviate those issues. So that's a really important piece that guides our work.
Hmm.
And we are always, collaboration is one of those values that guides
Hmm.
our work. So we're collaborating with partners to better understand the needs of the community, because one of the things that has always been part of United Way is not about United Way telling community what
Right.
they need.
Hmm.
It's about community telling us what they need.
I think that's such an excellent point. It's so easy sometimes to get in the mode of, well, I think we know what the community issues are, and so let's just go there.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to always keep a really wide network of partners around you who can sort of, you know, help you figure out whether you're on the right track or not.
Yeah, and a really key one of those partners is individuals who have a lived experience of poverty.
Hmm.
Those voices are essential to our work. They
Hmm.
inform our work. And that's really, really important.
So who can come? I know we talked a little bit a minute ago about it being sort of regional. So your HRM, who is actually eligible to approach the United Way for funding? So I guess thinking in terms of two things: one, geographically, where must they be
Mhm,
located? And
mhm.
two, do they need to be a registered charity? Do they need to be just a not-for-profit, or can other community groups approach you as well?
That's a great question, Joel. We are so as I said, we are part of United Way Canada movement,
Hmm.
and we are there are bylaws and things. Pardon me, I don't know the exact
Sure.
terminology that guide and our work. And so one of those is that we are permitted to fund registered charities.
Hmm. Okay.
So, however, having said that, um, a nonprofit that partners, that sets out a formal charitable partnership,
Right.
would be eligible for funding. So it's kind of a complicated thing to describe here today,
Hmm.
but it's important that that option is available. But mainly, it would be a registered charitable organization, and there are some other. We don't fund religious organizations. We don't fund educational institutions. So
Hmm.
so there is, and what you're going to see, Joel, anytime we have an application come out,
Hmm.
you will see that eligibility criteria there. And it's
Sure.
so key
Yeah.
to look at that, because it's those things that are, it takes a lot of time
Yeah.
to fill out a grant, and we value people's time and energy, and we want them to invest it in the programs that
Yeah. Well,
they
I mean, that's a big impetus for this whole series of interviews is just that, some of us joke that, whoever fills out the applications on the board is whoever the most capable person on that board happens to be, whether or not they have an interest in writing grant proposals or not.
mm,
I've been on several boards myself, and I know that I've found myself voluntold into that position of, well, you're the person who writes and we need a grant, so you're going to be the person who does it. And
Yep.
so a big part of the impetus for this whole program or this interview series is just to help those people who are out there going, I think that, I think we want to apply to the United Way. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe I've never written a grant proposal before, and this is the first time.
Yep.
And how exactly do I do that? So you were talking, I think again before we started recording, a little bit about a relatively new fund, I think called the Compassion Fund or something like that. And I might be
Right.
misnaming it, but can you tell us a little bit about that and how that came to be and where that's going?
Absolutely. So it's the Atlantic Compassion Fund, and it's actually closed at the moment. We've
Okay.
had 4 tiers of that. It started, we were one of the first organizations in Canada to put out funding
Mm,
for COVID to address the issues
mhm,
that individuals were facing in this health pandemic. And it was the vision of our local Tom Rose of Atlantic Business Interiors.
mhm.
He said, what can we do? And we quickly mobilized and got this fund together, got it out into community, and we did, I guess, we received over the period of from March to
Hmm.
the end of June, we received over 200 applications that we
Wow.
reviewed and thoroughly reviewed and put money out into the community to alleviate and address this. And I forgive me the numbers. I'm trying to, it's a bit of a blur,
Yeah.
but
Well,
on our website, it's very clear the numbers of organizations we were able to support and the amount of dollars we were able to invest thanks to the generosity of businesses, private donors, federal government, provincial government. It was an amazing collaboration that responded to the deep need in the community that COVID shone the light on.
that's an incredibly quick turnaround to have had. I mean, we're we're
Mhm.
we're about 6 months, I think, as we speak, into sort of the state of emergency or shutdown, and to have had 4 tiers of that program already. Is that a program? I mean, you mentioned it's closed now. Is that intended to come back or potentially coming back,
Right.
or
Oh, sorry.
no? Go ahead.
Our focus is on our multi-year funding, our
Right.
community fund to we our multi-year funding is 1 to 3 year funding. We know how
Hmm.
hard it is to apply for applications, so you apply and typically it would be a 3-year fund grant. Because of that, we have multi-year commitments that
Hmm.
we have to serve
Hmm.
and are committed to. So, for example, there are 30 organizations who are currently funded, and it's our campaign that we host right now
Hmm.
that will support those funds and the commitment that we've made to those organizations. So, for that reason, Joel, and as I say, typically the fall, this is when
Hmm.
we begin this process. It's a thorough process,
Yeah.
and we we make decisions for community by community. We gather funding panels that are made up of individuals with lived experience of poverty, people
Hmm.
from the business community, faith community, representing marginalized groups.
Hmm.
There's we bring people together and they assess the applications based on real firm criteria and make decisions based on that to alleviate poverty in HRM.
That's a, I was just going to say, that's such a great point. And it was going to be my next question actually, in terms, because I know one of the curiosities that so many, applicants have is, well, who makes this decision? I mean, we
Mhm.
submit our application, it goes to whomever, and then it disappears behind a screen and we're not really sure how that decision gets made. So I think it's great that you sort of have that transparent and you bring in so many people, the right people, to be able to
Mhm.
sort of make an informed
Mhm.
decision about that. That's great.
Yeah. And typically a funding process, approval process like that, we'd begin in September, and we would work weekly with those panels. We convene those panels together. We review all the applications, and we make decisions based again on criteria.
Mhm.
One of the things, and I want to make sure I share that, is not everybody has a professional fundraiser to fill out those
Yeah,
applications because
exactly.
they do amazing applications, let me tell you. Sometimes an application will come in and it's really you think, meh, I don't know.
Hmm.
But what we also do, and COVID is having an impact on everything, but typically what we would do is for every application, we do a site visit. So we come
Okay.
into the organization, we hear about your
Hmm.
organization, and there is nothing, for us, there's nothing that brings that application to life like a visit to the
Yeah.
organization.
Yes.
And so with
Sometimes
COVID, we've been doing phone calls.
phone calls and Zooms and everything else.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
that's an important point too, I think, because sometimes the words don't jump off the page in the way that an organization might want them to reach somebody on, maybe say on your end, who may not have even heard of the organization before, who's applying for
yeah.
the grant. And so to be
Mhm.
able to do the site visit, I think is exceptional, and you wouldn't necessarily get that everywhere. So I want
No,
to pick up on that thread a little bit more and ask, because I know we're sort of going in that direction anyway. What are some of the things that United Way of Halifax loves to see and doesn't like to see when they receive an application? So, what are some of the do's and don'ts, maybe, of here's how you can position yourself to give yourself a better chance of success, or maybe lesser?
certainly. Well, and again, as I mentioned before, our focus is on poverty
Hmm.
alleviation. So I love to see an application that directly addresses the issues facing individuals living in poverty.
Hmm.
Anytime we issue a granting opportunity, you're going to see the purpose of that grant. So, for
Hmm.
example, you spoke about the Atlantic Compassion Fund. The purpose of that fund was to address issues, emergency issues that people were experiencing, people living in poverty were experiencing due
Hmm.
to COVID-19. So it
Hmm.
had to be a COVID response, and it had to primarily be an organization primarily serving individuals living in poverty. So read those. It seems so simple,
Yeah.
but we've
Yeah.
received applications and we know people, it's tough out there. I've been there, I've been
Hmm.
on the ground working, and you're, and in particularly in COVID, the pivoting and the amazing,
Yeah.
incredible work that people did in our community organizations. But read that preamble, you
Mm.
will save yourself. If you can look at that and say, okay, what the program that I'm proposing, and we
Yeah.
fund programming, Joel, that's really an important
Right.
piece of United Way Halifax, but that proposal has to align with that and align with United Way's values. Look, do your research. Do your research. It doesn't, so what else do I like to see in an application? I love to hear a story
Hmm.
that brings that application, because we ask the questions and you make the answers, but when you have a quote or you have a story about the impact of your
Hmm.
work for real
Hmm.
people experiencing real issues, that brings those words on the paper to life.
Yeah.
I'm trying to I just want to make sure that I cover some of those things, because some of the things that we don't like to see, organizations that can't capture results.
Hmm.
That's a question
Yeah.
that we ask. Evaluation is essential.
Sure.
It's our accountability to our donors.
Yeah.
It's a way to know, is this really making a
Did it
difference? We think it
exactly.
is, but how do we know? Um, People calling to say, should I apply?
Hmm.
I don't, it's really, you need to have the application. And again, go back to that criteria. That will really tell you
Yeah.
if you should apply. And what is that? Literature references.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, we've reviewed 200 grant applications. We're a local organization. You can tell me about the local issues. Love to hear about it.
Hmm.
Always eager to learn. But literature references, it, it's not something that we're going to be able to read that literature and make
Yeah.
decisions based on that.
Yeah.
We do that as part of our own professional learning, but as part of an application, I wouldn't recommend that. I think
So
I think
so I
that's.
I expect you probably have several organizations, probably many that you've worked with a lot over the years because it's been a
Mhm.
successful partnership. But for the organizations that maybe are approaching you for the first time or thinking about it, when is the first, what's the right time to touch base with or to contact somebody at United Way Halifax for the first time, and how to do that? Because I think sometimes that's intimidating for people and they're not sure, should I submit my application first? Should I establish contact with one of their representatives and just sort of float
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
idea by somebody first to make sure we're in the right ballpark, so to speak? Is there a right time to get in
Yeah.
touch with you the first time?
I don't know necessarily a right time, Joel. It depends on what is out there. We're always interested in what's going on in community.
Hmm.
If you feel like you're an organization that is well aligned with us, you're going to see our names and contact information on the website. I would say love to do coffee meetings, but
Hmm.
nah, and I don't know if we can do a coffee meeting right now, but a phone call, just, I'm really interested in the organization, want to tell you, but we're interested in the organizations that are out there too. We're
Hmm.
very interested. Um, so there would be that. Um, if there's a granting application out there, you're going to see contact name and information.
Yeah.
Call us.
Yeah.
We're there.
Yeah.
Ask those questions. It's not going to be held against you or put you
Right.
in a better light. It's just to really for you that service is there. I mean, we've had, our assistant is the most incredible human. She will do whatever needs to be done to help organizations to
Yeah.
put in an application. We have a link on our website that you can sign up to be informed of any funding that is happening.
Okay.
So I would recommend that folks take a look at that very soon. It's possible there may be,
Hmm.
well, there are funding opportunities in the works. And if you allow me to go off in this direction a
Hmm.
little bit, um, I spoke about the multi-year funding. United Way is in a unique position. We're both a grantor and recipient of
Hmm.
donations.
Right.
And United Way Canada has been experiencing a decline in our workplace campaign, and that
Hmm.
was really what funded most of our work.
Hmm.
And so we recognize that, and instead of saying, oh, well, hey, gee, that's too bad, I guess we'll fund less.
Hmm.
We know the community need is great. So our funding framework includes also some, oh gosh, what's it called? Sorry, mind
That's
blank. Um, Targeted funding.
hmm.
And that targeted funding, so very soon there will be a targeted funding application that, again, it's come out of that poverty solutions report. Community hubs, neighborhood hubs
Hmm.
are really key to individuals experiencing issues in our
Excellent.
community. And those places, people thrive in those places.
Yeah.
And people thrive over good food. And
Yeah.
so it will be issuing a neighborhood kitchen fund in the very near
Mm.
future. It's the planning and the timelines. So again, sign up on that website,
Yeah.
on our website, so that you can be informed of those. Because what a great opportunity if you are a neighborhood hub um, to have some kitchen renovation done or purchase commercial equipment, things like that. We do know, again, COVID is impacting food delivery, but as one of our
Yeah.
partners said, this is a great time to renovate
Yeah.
your kitchen because you're in a bit of a pause on that food service.
I want to pick up on something I think you touched on a little bit there, with respect to maybe funding equipment or whatever. And this made me think: are there certain specific things you do and don't fund as a rule? When somebody comes to you for funding, are there certain things that they come for repeatedly that just as a rule, United Way Halifax just doesn't fund?
We fund programs, and we fund programs that build capacity for community and individuals in our community.
Hmm.
So, so it's really about, and it sounds somewhat cliche, Joel, but it's really about making a difference and an
Sure.
impact for people's lives. It's
Hmm.
not just about how can we make a life better today, but it's how can we make a life better.
Hmm.
with the things we invest in, with what we advocate for, with the partnerships that we put in place. So it's really key, but it depends on the grant. So if you look at
Hmm.
that Atlantic Compassion Fund, we were funding food hampers
Hmm.
and addressing food insecurity issues that are so prevalent
So
in
maybe
our
as long as the
province.
applicant can demonstrate that the thing they're asking for funding for will contribute directly to the impact that you want to have, it's really
Mhm.
less about what's being funded and more about the impact, which I think is great. And I think that's probably the way it should be. I know over the years, one of the common complaints about a lot of grants from various government departments is the rigidity around, well, we just don't fund this particular thing as a rule, regardless of whether it's necessary to the implementation of the
Mhm.
project or the program or that sort of thing. And on that same thread, is there a minimum and maximum? And I know this is probably a wide open question as well. Is there a minimum or maximum amount of funding that, say, if it's below a certain amount, it's just really not, it doesn't fit within the United Way sort of scope or scale? Or can you tell us a little bit about how much or how little funding you see requested in applications?
We're always looking to improve and respond to community. The last full call we had for multi-year funding had no limit.
Hmm.
We want people to ask for what they need.
Right.
I wish we could meet all of that need.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we can't. But we really and it I will confess it makes it tough
Hmm.
as a group reviewing when you get for
Yeah.
the last several rounds of funding. So for example, our last multi-year funding, we got $3 million in requests
Hmm.
and we had less than 1 million
To give.
to give, and it was those exact same numbers with the Atlantic Compassion Fund. And and it's hard, but we really have strong criteria that we apply to that. So one of those would be, what would be the impact if we didn't fund this program?
Hmm.
And in some of those cases, Joel, it can be a life or death
Yeah.
situation for individuals struggling in the LGBTQ community
Hmm.
who are isolated. And if a program that supports social inclusion, that can be the difference. So those are some of the questions we ask ourselves.
That's I mean, I know the common thread here is really impact, but I can't overstate how important I think that part of it really is, because I think that, like I said, historically, sometimes people complain about grants being, well, it's about inputs and it's about, what can we put
Yeah.
into this project, and less about what it's actually going to do or how it's going to be measured. And so I think that's great. Couple of more questions here. Are there any other important things that, as you think about people watching this sort of interview, just understanding the philosophy and vision of the United Way Halifax, anything else you would want to tell them as they sit and think about, should I submit an application? Is United Way Halifax the right place to go for what we're
Hmm.
doing? Anything else that
Yeah.
you can think of?
Well, I just can't say it enough that we are an organization about community impact.
Hmm.
We are looking to alleviate poverty. So, are you a poverty serving organization? Do the folks that you serve are they mainly living and experiencing poverty?
Hmm.
So, there are many charities that do fantastic work. There are sports charities, there are arts charities. Their work may not be aligned with the work of alleviating poverty. It's not to say that there aren't arts programming that would, social inclusion, one is so key, and
Hmm.
isolation is, we saw how the deep impact that has had on
Yeah.
every one of us, but
Yeah.
the impact that it has for particularly for individuals living in poverty. So again, I've said the word very often, but I can't stress often enough that
Yeah.
would be your primary focus for your organization.
It's interesting. I think we're still very much in the infancy stage of understanding how COVID-19 will impact poverty. I mean, I know we sometimes look at it through the lens of, well, we've been in it for 6 months, so we know a lot, and we do. But I think there's so much more to come, and there's so much we don't know about where this all leads and the impact that it will have on various communities. One other question I wanted to ask. That I perhaps should have asked a little bit earlier. Does United Way Halifax, when somebody applies to you for funding, do you always like to see that there's at least a second or maybe a third source of funding for what they're asking you to support, or are you the sole funder for some of the programs that you support?
It's a variety of that. We would support a program and be part of a program that's supported by other funders.
Hmm.
We would also support a program that is a collaborative initiative from a variety of organizations coming together. There is no set hard and fast rule on that. You're not, I know there are a number of funders who look for that community. Collaboration is one of our values.
Hmm.
It guides our work, but it doesn't, your application does not have to involve other organizations. That
Hmm.
it's important to collaborate, but that application does not necessarily have to be something that involves
Hmm.
a number of different partners in community.
Excellent.
Um, yeah, I think, I hope that answers the
Yeah,
question.
absolutely. Flexibility is sort of the word of the day, and I'm sort of getting that message over and over again, which I think is tremendous. So what's the best way for people? I guess this is the part where we sort of put in the plug for how to find you. And I know you have a website.
Yeah,
I forget the URL. I don't know if you can tell us what it is, or I'm sure
United Way Halifax.ca,
UnitedWayHalifax.ca. And I know
all
as
one word.
I was browsing a little bit earlier, and I know you've got some great list of the types of organizations and projects that
Hmm.
you've funded. So I think there's a whole bunch of information there that people can sort of sort through and figure out whether what they're doing fits the
Hmm.
mold or sort of it doesn't. So they can get in touch with you online. I know it's a little bit different now during COVID-19.
Yeah.
Are you tending to the phone lines? Do people still reach out to you that way? I'm guessing a lot of people just reach out via website or email, but
Great. Shoot me off an email anytime.
yeah.
We try to be responsive, immediate response to our emails, but I welcome connection by email. And then, maybe we could set up a phone call or something,
Hmm.
or a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call, because the coffee chat's probably not gonna happen. That would be the best way to get in touch with us. I do want to add one thing, Joel,
Sure.
that it's sometimes people will, just send off a request for funding to United Way. So we do have specific funds that are
Mhm.
available, and outside of that, we don't do the one-off funding,
Right.
and we don't fund individuals. We
Mhm.
fund those programs that serve individuals, and are happy to connect them with that. But I think, as people come away from this, I want them to understand, go to the website, sign up for the information about
Mhm.
receiving notice about what funding is available when.
Thank you. And just before we close, I know you mentioned earlier, and I know this has been a recurring theme across the board in terms of charities during COVID-19, but I think you might have mentioned that some of the donations to United Way Halifax have declined, and I'm sure there are multiple reasons for that, mostly led by the economic impact of COVID, I'm sure. But is there a plug on the other side of things? So if a donor wanted to donate to United Way? Is that something you do through your website? How does that work? Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, wow, that's a great question, and I should be able to answer that immediately. For a donor, you can go on our website and you can donate online. We have numerous workplace campaigns that will be beginning in September. It's going to look quite differently,
Hmm.
because typically we would go out into workplaces. They would
Yeah.
hear about the work that we do, and hear from people who are directly impacted by it. But there will be workplaces who, if you we are a local community impact organization. We fund programs that alleviate people living in poverty, social inclusion. Those things, COVID has shone such a light
Hmm.
on what's happening out there. So, we are an impact organization, and if you want to make a difference in those areas, I welcome you to join us in our
Awesome.
fight against poverty.
I wanted to bring that up because I think sometimes we all fall into the habit of thinking, well, this is such a long-standing and successful organization with such a
Mm,
tremendous reputation. And it does all the great work, so the money will always just sort of be there. And I think it's so important
mm,
to remind people that the money does come from donors. It does come from, and it's important money that is transferred back into the community in really effective ways. And so I didn't mean to catch you off guard with that. I just wanted to
oh,
sort of
not
bring
at
that up.
all.
And
No,
and
we're impacted by the trends in
yeah.
fundraising like any other organization, and we're working hard to raise those funds, but we know this is going to be a tough year for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, just invite individual donors, corporate donors. Corporations have been tremendous throughout
Hmm.
COVID and supporting us throughout our traditional work. So, excited to have them join in this work.
I like to think that that's what happens when you've demonstrated over almost 100 years that you do great work and that you work your magic, is that when difficult times do hit, you're the one that stands above, and that organizations continue to support. So hopefully that
Yeah.
continues. And
I don't know about standing above, Joel, and we like to think we stand alongside.
excellent, excellent. Uh, well, I'd like to thank you, Karen, for joining me today and telling us not only about the work that you do, but how community groups can access grants and funds from United Way Halifax. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So once again, that's Karen Gilmore, Community Sector and Investment Specialist with United Way Halifax. And thank you everyone for watching. Please do remember to check out some of the other interviews in this Green Light for Grants series, and we hope to see you there. So thank you.